What's up, short attention span history nerds? Welcome to the first Independence Day special. My name is Mike Perry, and you're watching the first Independence Day special of 10-Minute History. This weekend, America celebrates the signing of the Declaration of Independence and its birth as a nation. Although Independence Day was not designated an official federal holiday until 1941, since 1776, we have celebrated our independence on July 4th. This weekend, as we prepare our festivities, parades, and picnics, I thought it only proper to take a glance back at the early revolutionaries and soldiers who stood up for independence and self-government. These are 7 things I think you'll find quite interesting about the American Revolution and the colonists' fight for independence. 1. Compared to the British military officers, George Washington had limited military experience. On July 14, 1775, the Second Continental Congress appointed George Washington as commander of the newly created Continental Army. He had charisma, leadership skills, and experience commanding troops in the French and Indian Wars. So, Washington was the ideal person to lead the revolution. However, Washington had limited experience compared to his British rivals, who also happened to command the world's most powerful military. According to MountVernon.org, he wasn't trained in the open field style of battle practiced by the common British generals. He had no practical experience maneuvering large formations of infantry, commanding cavalry, artillery, or maintaining the flow of supplies for thousands of men in the field. Despite his weaknesses, Washington proved to be a capable leader who took advantage of the British forces' vulnerabilities in the rough frontier and kept the Continental Army together. In my opinion, it was Providence that led General Washington to successfully defeat the British military. Number 2 is a little touchy subject right now, so bear with me. This is a historical fact. George Washington required the inoculation of the Continental Army. Before the advancement of modern medicine, disease, not combat, was the primary cause of death in war. In the winter of 1777, Washington demanded the entire Continental Army to be inoculated against smallpox. This was a dangerous process as it required a living person with smallpox to be carted around and his open wounds scraped and then pushed into the bloodstream of the soldier by means of a deep incision. This operation required great secrecy as the process left the inoculated soldiers incapacitated for a stretch of time. According to Mount Vernon scholarship, death by smallpox decreased from 17% to 1% after the troops were inoculated. Now, number 3 is personally cool to me, as I'm an executive chef in the real world. Number 3, the revolutionaries gained a master baker. One of Washington's greatest challenges during the Revolution War was managing and organizing the movement of supplies to the troops, including food. During the winter of 1777 at Valley Forge, the Army's food rations were reduced to 1 pound of meat per day, 1 pound of flour, 3 pints of beans or vegetables if available, a pint of milk if available, and a small amount of rice and molasses. However, the men didn't get any yeast to mix in with the flour, making their bread flat and dense, and their meat required so much salt for preservation it was barely edible. Enter Christopher Ludwig, a German baker and ardent supporter of the American War of Independence, who volunteered for the Army at the age of 55. After seeing the meager food conditions the Continental Army had, he quickly requested an audience with General George Washington. He explained his cause to George Washington, who shortly thereafter had the Continental Congress appoint him Baker General. It was stipulated that he should return 1 pound of bread for every pound of flour delivered to him, but he immediately replied, "Not so. I must not be enriched by the war. I shall return 135 pounds of bread for every 100 pounds of flour. Under Chef Ludwig's care, the Continental Army began to consume quality meals, enriching not only their health, but also their spirits. George Washington would refer to Ludwig as my honest friend when he addressed him in public. Upon his death in 1801 at the age of 81, Ludwig bequeathed $13,000, which is about $500,000 today, fund a charitable trust for the free schooling and education of poor children of all denominations in the city and the liberties of Philadelphia, without exception to the country, extraction, or religious principles of their parents or friends. Number 4, the Revolutionary War began before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The American Revolution did not begin with the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which actually was officially signed on August 2nd, not July 4th. In fact, it started over a year earlier on April 19, 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord. Leading up to the first battles, tension between the British and colonists had been steadily mounting. On April 18, 1775, the colonists learned British troops had planned to march into Concord near Boston, Massachusetts, to seize an arms cache. Paul Revere and other writers sounded the alarm, and the colonial militia assembled to meet the Redcoats. The colonists lost the battle that day, but proved to the British that they could and would put up a fight. For the ensuing years, tensions continued to escalate until the colonists officially declared independence in the summer of 1776. Number 5, the Culper Spy Ring uncovered major secrets. New York City became a stronghold for British forces early in the war, and George Washington needed information about the movement of British troops stationed there. However, efforts were unsuccessful until 1778, when Washington named Officer Benjamin Talmadge as the head of the Continental Army's Secret Service. Talmadge recruited a small group of men and women he trusted from his hometown of Satucket, Long Island, for assistance, and they became known as the Culper Spy Ring, named after the pseudonym Culper several of the spies adopted. This group uncovered key British troop movement and discovered the Redcoats planned to ambush newly arrived French troops in Rhode Island, which could have proved disastrous to the Americans' war effort if the British had been able to carry out their surprise plans. According to History.com, the Culper Spy Ring achieved more than any other American or British intelligence network during the entire war. Number 6, women fought in the American Revolution. Women have contributed to the U.S. Armed Forces since the creation of the Continental Army in 1775. In the American Revolution, they were instrumental in keeping the garrisons running as cooks, seamstresses, laundresses, and nurses. Some even disguised themselves as men and fought in combat, while others worked as spies. It's believed that Anna Smith Strong, a local Satucket woman with connections to the Culper Spy Ring, also participated in their intelligence activities. Legend has it that she used laundry on her clothesline to communicate messages between members of the spy ring. Now this one's for my dad, a retired Navy man. Number 7, Congress established the Continental Navy on October 13th, 1775. When we think of the American Revolution today, we tend to think of its major land operations like the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga, the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Battle of Trenton and Princeton. However, when Congress learned British fleets were on their way to support British war efforts, they quickly established and organized the Continental Navy, which went on to make significant contributions during the war. The Navy attacked British merchant ships and defeated several British warships. After the colonists won their independence, the Continental Navy was dissolved. However, with George Washington's support, 3 frigates were built and completed by the Department of War in 1797. And as tensions between America and France increased, the act establishing the Department of the Navy was signed by John Adams in 1798. Now, speaking of John Adams, He almost wasn't the second president, or first vice president for that matter. The reason? He was almost killed when the ship carrying him from the colonies to France was attacked by a British ship. Adams was aboard the USS Boston, a 24-gun frigate. When a lookout spotted a British warship on the horizon, Samuel Tucker, commander of the USS Boston, gave orders to sink the ship should she continue advancing. As the ship showed no signs of retreat, nor turned to another course, Tucker ordered the Boston turn and bear guns on the British vessel. As the Boston began to maneuver broadside, the British ship began to bear arms on the Boston. The British ship fired first, sending a cannonball across the deck of the Boston. As the two ships erupted into battle, a cannonball blasted into Adams' quarter, a mere foot from where he was sitting. Adams quickly grabbed a musket and made his way to the deck to engage in battle. Adams volleyed several shots before Captain Tucker called a ceasefire. The USS Boston had successfully sunk the British ship. So those are 7 facts about America's War of Independence you probably didn't know, unless you're a history nerd like me and love to read the unusual details of history. Thanks for watching 10-Minute History. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If I've earned it, please consider subscribing and watching some of my earlier videos. I would also like to hear your thoughts on this subject, or a possible subject you would like me to cover in the future. Until next time. What's up, short attention span history nerds? Welcome to the first... I forgot what I was going to say. And defended several British warships. Defeated. The Navy attacked British merchant ships. I can't say that.